What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing awesome and taking care of yourselves. So today we're going to continue to explore Tony Rodriguez, who was in the 20 and Back program, placed on Mars to be basically human fodder for some of the other U.S. military members up there, and his program got canceled. And so this is a part 2 to the part 1, so if you didn't listen to part 1 of Tony Rodriguez, go back and listen to it. And then come into this one and listen to it. So where we pick up is Tony's program is canceled because he just got his arm chopped off, he just got his brain invaded by some insectoid on Mars, and they found out that he's not up there for killing. He's not a killer at all. He shouldn't be in the program. So he's finding out, oh my gosh, I'm not even supposed to be up here doing this, you know. But he knows that he has some psychic abilities now that he went through these MK Ultra experiments, that he was trained that way, and that he also communicated with this telepathic being, and it kind of rubbed off on him. So now he's got these psychic capabilities, and he's using them to try to figure out what the heck's going on. So he said he wasn't trained to be a full-on soldier. He was supposed to be support, and he was shipped to the Ceres colony, which is a planetoid of Mars. So it's a planetoid that's between Mars and Jupiter. So it's not on Mars anymore. He's right on the edge of the asteroid belt. So Mars is kind of controlled by part of it anyway, by Americans. But now they walked him down a completely set of different corridors into a totally different area. And he said it was a train station on this planetoid series. And he said he's ridden on so many different trains and in different programs that they all kind of looked alike. But he could feel it lift up, and that it was a maglev train, and it took him to a completely separate part of the base, unlike anything else he had ever been on before. So I found that interesting. And he said he went to a completely separate area that he had never been to, and the people that he was riding with were free. They were free people. They weren't part of this program at all. It wasn't full of military personnel. It was full of professionals, and they were dressed well, and people that were interacting with society with authority. So it was, and he could hear him talking, and he's listening to, what appears to be like people just being in a train, like on Earth. So he's very fascinated. He realizes the train is taking off at a humongously accelerated rate. He said, and then there was almost like a ringing in his ears, and then there was kind of like a shock, like they had started to decelerate. And when they stopped, it opened up, and it was a totally different planet. Instead of red dirt, it was gray dirt, and these were Germans instead of Americans, and it was a giant hangar area the size of many gymnasiums. And there were troops inside of this place, and it was daytime, and he's seeing these discs flying over, these chrome discs flying in this building, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing, because this is nothing like he was seeing before. And they were underground, and these discs are just hovering over these entities, and he could kind of feel the electrical crackle over the area where these ships were flying. And he's like, holy shit, what the hell is going on? He's like, we actually went to a different planet from Ceres. He was super disoriented. He's kind of dizzy. He's just not understanding where the hell they went through. The train kind of went through a portal or something like that. So basically now he's getting orders. He's getting orders like he's in the military again from these professional people, and they're telling him to get in line. And there's about 8 guys with him, 8 to 15 guys with him. And he's in line, and he's just like, he's thirsty. He's like, I need a little drink of water. Well, for the professionals, they're giving them full bottles of water. For these fodder guys, they're giving them little cups of water, like those paper cups. And he said there's hundreds of soldiers up there now, and they're all German, in German uniform with a sidearm And they hand him a little piece of paper, basically, with German writing on it. And he said, "You guys are going to take this." And he called them slaves. "You slaves are going to read this, and when called upon, you're going to do your best. And if you don't read it, you can go right over there to where a black spot on the ground was, like a grease spot. Basically, they just shot him right there if they didn't want to go along with the program. And they all said, "Hey, who wants to get shot today?" And all the people said, "No, no, no." All the fodder guys are like, "No, we don't want to get shot." And these Germans are like, "You're going to salute the flag." And I'm assuming it's a German flag. And he did exactly what they asked for. And there was a guy at the podium talking in German, and kind of like Hitler, right? And and now he's getting asked, why were they there? Why were they there? And he said they were a breakaway civilization. They had about 225,000 people living there. They had 40,000 slaves. There are 2 alien species that live there. And they're completely underground. They're all living underground. They had monitoring stations on all the parts of the planet. And it looked like a weather station, like it was a rock. But they're watching outside. They're watching for everything. They're monitoring space around them, inside Ceres, outside Ceres, around Jupiter. So they're always monitoring. It was a monitoring station, and he was going to be a slave to this group. I find this so fascinating because, he was originally brought up to Mars underneath the American program. But since the American program couldn't use him, they traded him off to the Germans as a slave. That's how insane it is. Because in the Germans, they're controlled or work with the Draco, the evil dragon-like reptilians. So it's not a group you want to be part of at all. So he's screwed now. So he becomes basically kind of like part of this unfortunate German city, and it was an entire replica of Copenhagen. He says the Republic of Copenhagen. So it was a humongous cavern. The entire city looked like it was from the 1930s, 1940s. They had columns. They had marble everywhere. They had vehicles for emergency staff. They had police. They had an entire civilization, just like you would imagine here. They had electrical poles. You could call 911, but they also had like flying ships going around everywhere too. But isn't it interesting that they built these cities very similar to the 1930s? So they were coming up there from the 1930s and 1940s and building these cities just like they had back in the 1930s and 40s in Germany. And he said that they had, it was very similar to some of these episodes that I've seen on like Stargate, where these cities are very like steampunk 1930 era, except they have flying ships, right? And these flying ships are always taking off. They're always flying around everywhere. And the interesting thing is they had their own gravity. They had these plates that were powered plates that would be inside the ships. They were also everywhere in the city. So this entire city was covered by these plates. So these plates created a certain gravity that worked for all these humans that were up there. One of the alien species that he's talking about were 9 feet tall, and they had like this elongated banana head. They looked kind of blue, and he said that they wore some kind of bracelet. And the bracelet, wherever they went, it gave them the gravity that they needed, because the gravity was too heavy for them. Obviously, they're super tall, so they probably had a light gravity wherever they're from. And so they could adjust the gravity or have AI adjusted or regulated. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then, he's asked, did you talk to, these Germans, in English? And he said there was basically this like little communication device that, it was everywhere. It was almost like it built into the city. Wherever you walked, you could speak any language and people could understand you. And they would talk back in their language, but you could understand them. The only place that it wouldn't work was if you were like kind of in between the ship and the planet. It was like kind of some disruption there. But otherwise, he said, anywhere you walked on the planet, people could communicate, and it was built in everywhere. It was like having like AI everywhere you went. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He said one other place that it didn't work was inside these elevators. For some reason, there was disruption. Maybe it was like an electronic disruption or something like that. But he talks about the fact that he was basically sold off by the Americans and traded to the Germans. What were they traded for? Probably weapons. We probably need weapons. Maybe ships. I don't know. But they were trading for resources, and all these colonies up there. He says they all trade together, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's assets that they need for food rations or for technology for their ships, so parts of ships. But he said that there's all kinds of different populations up there. And he's asked, were the Germans nice to you? And he said, absolutely not. They're militant. I was a slave for them, the same way that they would treat slave labor here. He said we had to salute to them. We had to read our card the best that we could in German, which I had no clue on how to do. He said we had to stagger around a lot. We always were afraid we were going to be shot. We had to do the salute, the German salute. Interesting enough, just kind of how Elon did on stage, right? He did it, that German salute. But Tony talks about living on Sirius for about 11 or 12 years. He said he basically slept on a cot with a little drawer next to him, and it was basically like a prison cell. The other guys, the other people were there, but he didn't get like a nice city to live in or anything like that. There were all the professionals. Germans had a city to live in. They had a train that they can go into. They had a cash system that they could work with, so they could go and buy things. And he was always upset because sometimes these guys were allowed to go into the city and kind of look around and walk around, but they didn't get any money, so they couldn't go buy things, which kind of sucked, overall. So that was an unfortunate thing. But he talks about how he moved up in rank and he was able to work in the ships as a cargo specialist, and then he worked his way up to becoming a supervisor of the cargo. And he was looking at the cargo that they were shipping, and it was a lot of food rations. It was also weapons. But he's talking about the fact that they were doing selective breeding up there as well. So these guys were doing not only resource shipping, but they were also, doing a lot of, DNA swapping. They were doing a lot of, kind of like how Hitler was doing. He wanted to keep the Aryan race, blonde hair, blue eyed, even though he wasn't blonde hair, blue eyed. I think he got a lot of this ideology from the aliens. And that's what they were carrying on over at Mars. They were continuing to manipulate DNA and make these guys taller, smarter, more intelligent, and just better, overall. So he's talking about, he continues to talk about how advanced they were technologically, even though they had a 1930s look to the cities. They had these flying ships. They had all kinds of technology that we wish we had here. The funny thing is, he said they watched a lot of television, but the television that they watched was like the television from Earth. They were getting like Earth media, and they were getting like Earth, DVDs, and they were bringing them up there, and they could watch those up there. But also, they had their own entertainment as well. So they had their own entertainment that the Germans created that they could give, and then they had sports, they had baseball, basketball, and they were performing that, and it was shown on their televisions. So I find that really fascinating too. So did he ever get back? That's the question. Did he ever get back? That's what we want to know. So he did get back, but it wasn't for some time. Before he came back, he found out that he was delivering this cargo to an American group on Earth, and it was in San Diego. and one of the ships he was delivering with landed in San Diego, and they dropped off some cargo. And when they dropped off this cargo, he has a manifest, right, of all the cargo that he's dropping off, and they need to sign for it. And he's like, and he could see that there was a balance that they had not paid yet. And he's like, and Tony just asks him, he's like, you guys ever gonna catch up on this balance? And the Americans just laughed at him. They just laughed at him, laughed his ass off, because because they're like, we're never gonna pay for that. What the hell are you talking about? We're never paying for that ever. He's like, we own them. And I think he's talking about the Germans at this point. Yeah, let me go back here real quick. I just want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, so I think, he's talking to one of his supervisors, the Germans, and they owe the Americans a ton of money. The Americans thought the Germans were paying for the goods there, but the truth is, whatever they got, they just got for free, because they weren't going to pay for it anyway. So the Americans were the fools. The Americans were the fools that thought we were going to get paid. Is that maybe because we got snookered by these Mars Germans, and that's why we lost those trillions of dollars that they can't account for in the budget for Congress? Maybe, right? That might be a huge reason why we lost a bunch of money, was because because we got took by these Mars Germans. They were never gonna pay us for our goods, so the Americans were giving them a bunch of goods, and they never got paid for it. So basically, they put everything in the cargo net, and they took off. And they went back, and this is interesting. This is an interesting part of the story. So they're waiting on some cargo at one point in San Diego, and Tony decides, well, he's kind of senior level at this point. Remember, he's been there for 11 years. And they dropped a cargo net over the side of the ship, and they decide, hey, they want to go for a little dip in the ocean. So they go for a dip, and while they're swimming in the ocean, he's like, it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal, because the crew that he was with was free, but he was a slave, and he got tired of going up the net. When he got to the top of the cargo net, he actually got reported, because he was huffing and puffing. So he had to do PT every day for 90 days just to get back into shape, because he couldn't crawl up this net, all because he was just struggling and he was out of shape. So he never did that again. He said they can go swimming, but he wasn't gonna go down this cargo net and try to get back up again. But he did notice they were always delivering like 50-gallon drums of cargo. He didn't know what it was. He was never told. They did drop off huge wooden crates, high-tech looking graphite boxes, and so on. He said there was so much stuff he couldn't even explain it. Now this is really interesting, because we had Michael Herrera, who is a Marine over in Indonesia, who stated that he saw not necessarily I don't know what the craft was that Tony was on or what it looked like. He didn't describe it, but we do have this very circular craft that was black, that was dropping off cargo and in these wooden crates. And then they also had people that they were transporting as well, doing human trafficking. Wouldn't it be interesting if they were taking these people, bringing them on the ship, and they were trading the Germans for them, right? And they were trading them for for goods and resources. I mean, it all makes sense when you think about it. If we're getting this information from Tony saying he was traded, wouldn't it make sense that we could just take a bunch of people from a poor area and trade them for goods and resources? I think that makes sense. So I wanted to see if Tony had any information on, any other human trafficking that he saw, other than the fact that he was human trafficked himself. So we don't really need him to say that he saw humans being taken, but he would see crew guys that would, take all of this cargo out, and it would immediately be gone. And he said it was like this, same material that they had always been using, and it was loaded onto an electric truck, kind of like a cart that they would load up and clean. And he said, "What are they mining?" And And he says they're not mining anything. He said they were looking for water on Ceres. So they were digging up all of this, dirt, and they're looking for water. You got to imagine water would take up a ton of weight to try to transport versus them finding it on Ceres. So their part of his job was to literally dig by hand for hundreds of yards, 100 yards in and then hundreds of yards back. He was part of this mining crew, and he said it was a punishment task. They were there to discipline him, and he thought he was going to get killed or shot or whatever, but eventually he did not get killed or shot. And they sent him back on the train, and he eventually got out. He said he's being sent back. He said that he said that he was going to be sent back, and they were taken care of. They were taken care of, to keep their health in good shape. But he was still a slave, and he didn't have like very good quarters. It's really unfortunate, right? I mean, it seems like you should be able to have some decent quarters while you're working up there. But we're going to go on to the next portion of this,
going back,
and
right?
that's what he's talking about now. He's like, we're getting sent back. They did all the medical procedures. They were taking his consciousness out of the clone. They put him on the table. He became a vegetable, and the clone that they made for him, they made that clone specifically for him to put his consciousness back into this clone, because this clone would not have all the wear and tear that his old version had of him, right? So he was taken at 9 years old. They cloned him at 9, put his consciousness back into the 9-year-old body, and he went back. Isn't it interesting? Because that kid that was at the science fair, and his dad was quote unquote part of the Illuminati, he said, that they spoke in a language that he didn't understand. Wouldn't it be interesting if that kid actually also was part of the 20 and back program? That's why he had a 200 level IQ, and he was just in this he was going back to school at 9 because he had been abducted at 9, and he turned 29 and got put back into a 9-year-old body, and he's got this 200 level IQ. Well, it totally makes sense, especially if his dad was a high-ranking official in either the American side or the German side, and they taught him all kinds of things, that Earthlings don't know about. But they had to implant all of his memories back in. He said, I was basically a different person. I was taken from the 20 and back, and I came back minutes later. And his parents never knew. His sister never knew. His dad said that when he came back, he said, "You're different. You're different somehow. I don't know how to say it, but you're different." And he said that at 9 he's already attracted to adult women, which makes sense because he was already an adult. His father could tell he was different. His mom could tell he was different. They all knew something was weird about him, but they couldn't put their finger on it because he's 9 years old. And he's super excited to be back home. He's hugging his mom. He's hugging his dad. He's trying to give high fives. He's trying to spend time with them, and it becomes this just hard time for him to adjust. And there's a lot of things that happened to him while he was there, especially in the German mentality. When people would raise their hand, he got so freaked out because it kind of looked like, the German salute, and he thought he was having flashbacks and things like that. But yeah, getting back into his human life was really difficult, especially growing up on a farmhouse. This guy lived in, I think he said it was Ohio, on a farmhouse. So, it's not like he was like some city kid. He was very much a country young guy. So I feel bad for him. I feel like, I'm watching him. I'm watching his mannerisms and his facial, I don't know, the micro expressions. And I'm not seeing lying going on. I'm seeing a guy dealing with post-traumatic stress and trying to explain his scenario. And he's kind of here and he's kind of there when he's talking about things. He does kind of bounce a little bit, but it stays on track. So he'll kind of like go off track for a second, not long, and he'll come right back. He's trying to like explain things, but imagine trying to explain being on another planet to somebody. Imagine trying to explain being a slave and trying to encapsulate everything that happens to you mentally while you're in that state, and you're helping a civilization. You're helping aliens, and you're encountering different things you can't even explain or understand. You don't even understand half of the stuff that you're seeing. You know what I mean? So I gotta imagine he was left in the dark quite a bit, and that's got to be tough too. So anyway, if there's anybody that's listening to this podcast that knows of anybody that has a similar scenario, I'd like to hear about it. I'm curious. I'm interested in it because I know there's more people out there that have experienced this kind of stuff, and there's much more on Mars that's going on than we know about. So anyway, guys, I hope you take care of yourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. Until next time, guys, take care. And Lockdown Universe out. Go like, follow, share, subscribe. Peace.